We are live. What's good, everyone? Matt here from UK Nets Fans, and I'm joined, as ever, by Aidan McConaughey for another episode of BK to UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. Today is Monday, the 10th of October, and today we're chatting about the preseason so far, practice in the park, and it didn't take long. This is the second episode back for this season, but injury and trade chat too. So make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans, and check us out on YouTube where you can watch back all of our episodes. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Aidan, Nets basketball is back. Preseason is underway. Not off to the best of starts, our Brooklyn Nets. It was a 108-127 loss to the Sixers, followed up by an 80-109 loss to the Heat, both at home. What have you made of preseason so far?
Yeah, it's probably been underwhelming, I'd say. Not overly concerning. I think obviously preseason is just one of those things, where anything can happen just because of the way the rotations work, where everyone's getting minutes. A loss, two losses doesn't really bother me too much. Some of the stuff we saw on the court was maybe a bit concerning from certain guys. I thought Ben Simmons looked good. So obviously, first time seeing him. Had a bit more chemistry with the others sooner than I imagined, which is nice to see. He's obviously been around the guys for a while in the last season and whatnot. So, just some good plays. Obviously, quite a bit of rust, as you expect, for a guy that's not played basketball in over a year. Nice to see him get his first points with a dunk against the Sixers, which was nice and satisfying. Yeah, some nice play with Nick Claxton, some really creative passing that you do forget that he does have in his locker. So yeah, that was good to see. KD, obviously, he looked refreshed compared to the last time we saw him. Dead man walking, really, last time we saw him.
Running on fumes last time we saw him.
Boston season series. So, yeah, I mean, he's still a bucket. He's in mid-season form any time of year. If he's playing just pick up basketball in the summer, if he's right in playoff form, he's always in mid-season form. So I think he's looked good. And yes, some of the younger guys look really, really good. Some of the pickups that we've made over the summer look good. Royce O'Neal, I thought he's looked fantastic. Obviously we saw Joe Harris, Patty Mills. I thought they were a wee bit disappointing. I just think it's one of those things. I do think like the shooter, the wings, it is the toughest role to come into after an off season, to heat up and get back into what you do best. But yeah, I just thought Harris did look he's obviously had a lot of time off himself. I thought he looked a bit poor. Patty Mills, I just feel that his age is starting to get to him just a little bit, slowing down a wee bit in pick and rolls. Defensively, he was very slow, especially in that Philly game. But yeah, overall, I don't think we can be too disheartened with how they went. Obviously, they're just getting reps, building chemistry and whatnot. But there is that part of me that thinks the team does feel so fresh at the moment. And we're literally playing basketball in just over a week, 8 days now. Serious basketball. So that's a little scary. But aside from that, enjoyable to see these guys playing basketball again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've nailed it. It's just like, it's nice to have the excuse. It's only preseason. I think I read that they had 6 days of training camp before that first preseason game. And we've seen some players in and around the HSS training center during the summer. We know that KD was the last one in. But as you said, KD's going to KD, and it didn't look like he needed any more practice than he got. But yeah, it's just a really, really new group. But as you said, with Ben Simmons with all the through passes that they do into space, it's not like they're one of these teams that are set up a formation around the arc or whatever, and they're fizzing it around all over the place. They're it seems that they're going to do a lot of running and passing into space and players sort of connecting onto the end of that. So I think is only going to get better. But some of that was there already. One thing I noticed, especially in that first Sixers game, they had Kyrie Irving was a lot more of a willing passer, and I think especially between early he had a couple of really nice dimes to Nick Claxton and to Ben Simmons, and I think if he's linking up with those two and they're just attacking the rim. They're both such rangy, lanky athletes. I think that's going to be really, really good for the Nets. Great to see Ben back, as you said. Everyone knows that I'm a Nets stan. I don't watch any basketball outside of Nets, so it's going to be really good to see him a little bit more closely. But he's fizzing out behind over the head passes out to people. So that was amazing to see. Claxton as well, I thought, showed himself off really nicely. He's got a bit of attitude, which is nice. Like when he's like hitting the dunks and like hanging on the rim a little and flicking out and taunting the crowd and stuff like that. That was really nice to see. There was a really nice hustle play where he's diving after balls and whipping it out to KD with a no-look pass as well. So I was always very hesitant. Very hesitant on getting too high on Nick Claxton ahead of this season, but it's taken me one game and I'm like, yeah, maybe Claxton's all right. So that was cool. Joe Harris, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but when his first shot of the game in that Philly game just didn't even hit rim, I was like, okay, yeah. that's rough. But kind of like you said, it's just like he's coming in so cold, it's ridiculous. So he's going to take him a while to find his touch, but he's one of the best shooters in the league, and I have no doubt that he's going to find it, especially because Ben Simmons seemed to be finding shooters so incredibly well. I know that's kind of something that he was known for at his time in Philly, but it looked like Ben Simmons, as well as having KD and Kyrie on the floor with him, he's always going to either have Joe Harris, Patty Mills, or Royce O'Neal around him as well. And Royce O'Neal, I was really, really impressed by. He's sort of looks as though he's everything that has been advertised. He's got that. He's got a really nice stroke from three, and he gets busy on the defensive end. So exactly what we were in for. And yeah, generally it's been some nice kind of bit parts that we've seen going forward. Edward Sumner has been a really nice point. He actually hasn't played basketball for a longer time than Ben Simmons, which I found out that's crazy. So there's so many. Not only is it a new group, not only is it they're all a new coaching staff trying to install new things and stuff like that. There are also so many people on this team that are coming back from such an extra long time out. So obviously TJ Warren hadn't played and all that kind of stuff, and Seth Curry's still out. But yeah, there's just a lot of moving parts, and there's still a lot of room to grow. And I think there's going to be some real growing pains with this team, and I think it's going to get real ugly real quick. But I do think once it clicks, it's going to be okay. I'm going to be completely honest, and if you follow me on Twitter, you're going to understand and you're going to see where I'm coming from. But League Pass has been an absolute pain in the neck in the early part of this season. So I've watched the first half of that Philly game, and I'm going on the extended highlights because that's all I can get on the app. One of the sort of drawbacks of being a UK-based fan is we don't get it on cable. So unless you shell out for Sky Sports, which not even sure the preseason covered in Sky Sports, but yeah, you're at the whim of the League Pass. So I'm going to try our best, but I was just wondering, for as far as what you've spotted, is there anyone who's shown that they should be in the rotation off the back of these two games?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Sumner there. I think he's probably been one of the most exciting players that we've seen that have came in. Personally, I didn't really expect him to be a guy that would maybe make the rotation, but he's certainly putting up an argument. I made a comparison the other day in the Discord. He kind of gives me a lot of kind of Caris LeVert vibes, which is probably quite pleasing for a lot of us Nets fans that kind of so accustomed to that Caris LeVert, D'Angelo Russell kind of team, just for the kind of good vibes. He just strikes me as that type of player that can come in when we're kind of in a bit of a dry spell, and he can get buckets fast. And I think he is one of those guys that when he gets hot, he is going to get hot. He may get cold, go through kind of cold spells in games, but it's nice to kind of have that guy that's really not afraid to attack the rim, but can also shoot as well. So you're really impressed with him. Watanabe as well. It seems like a really good pickup. A guy that I've kind of always kept my eye on around the league, but it seems to be that the kind of rotation that the Nets have, the kind of systems that they're running, he could slot in there quite nicely, especially in the fact that he's really not afraid to put his body on the line, which is kind of what we need, and we've missed that the last few years. So just kind of those wings that are just more than happy to just kind of go full on against guys. Obviously, he kind of was made famous. I think it was last season, or no, 2 seasons ago, when Anthony Edwards obviously dunked on him. He was on every poster of every Slam magazine around the world. But at the end of the day, a lot of guys would have just wimped out of that and let Anthony Edwards dunk that.
I would rather that my players would just be like, I don't care if I'm on a poster. I'm trying to get it, and I'm 1 out of 10 I'll block. But yeah, I'm all for that. Yeah, so
me too. I think at the end of the day, you just want those guys that are willing to kind of leave everything on the floor. And I'm not naming guys in particular because I can't think of any, but I do think there has been guys that we've had over the last few years that wouldn't do that and don't give that same effort. Yeah, I know. But I mean, I just liked what he was doing going forward. He was attacking the rim. He was kind of really good kind of help defender as well, which is another thing we've missed. So those 2 guys have certainly made arguments for those slots. Obviously, Morris had a good game against Miami as well. I can't remember how many points he had, but I think he had about 12 points or something off the bench.
Yeah, 10 points, 5 of 7, which is good.
Yeah, no, that's nice to see. Obviously, he's kind of not got his kind of 3-point shooting kind of up and running yet for us, but I think eventually once they find what his role is, because he's essentially a new guy to this team. He's only been here for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Once they kind of figure out how to utilize him as best as they can, I think he could be interesting as well. I think the young guys, I've not seen kind of like, it's obviously a small sample size, but I've not seen a huge leap from guys like Cam Thomas. Daron Sharp looked like he's kind of made a bit of a leap. He looked again, he looked pretty good in that Philly game. He had a really nice block at one point, I remember. So yeah, these guys are going to get chances. Will they break through? I don't know. But I'd say Sumner and Watanabe have certainly made an argument to get in that 10-man rotation. What about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Sumner that kind of jumped off the page first. So in that first game, he had 12 points off 4 of 6 shooting and 4 of 4 from the line, which, on 15 minutes is more than and 2 assists and a steal. So, if that's pretty much what you want from a guy that's just playing 15 minutes. That was really cool. Didn't even take a 3. So I think he knows what sort of where his skill set is. But then in the following game, he followed up with, 4 points, 1 from 8, 0 of 3, still 100% from the line. Couple of assists still, but 4 fouls. So hopefully he's not going to be one of these streaky guys. But yeah, in that second game, Cam Thomas, doing Cam Thomas things, and he had the most points out of anyone who isn't called Kevin Durant, with 13, going 4 of 9. So it's like you say, I think we covered this off a bit last week, where it's like, it's great that we've got these other pieces coming in, but when you've got young rookies that you want to develop as well, it's just like, you can't have both. You've almost got to choose. So it's going to be interesting. Hopefully, they can split the game time between them, and we do get a little bit from everyone. Obviously, Kessler Edwards, who was thrust into the limelight last season, played 16 minutes in that. Started that Heat game, I think. That was a surprise. Obviously, no Harris, no Irving on that one, so that was a bit weird. 0 of 4 from 3, 1 of 7 for 6 points. So that was incredibly disappointing. But Ben Simmons playing 25 minutes, only 4 points, but 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal. So yeah, it's like you say, it's early days and we still got a lot of growing. But yeah, I think for people that I've been nicely surprised with, Sumner and Watanabe are right up there. I liked what I saw out of that first game with Markieff Morris. He's just a big big booty, big thick boy who can just hang around the rim, which is exactly what we need. And yeah, so hopefully those guys are gonna pan out. I think we play next. We've got the Bucks this week. I think it's Wednesday. I'm not sure if that's Wednesday night or Thursday morning, UK time. But that's against the Bucks, and you expect another drubbing, but we shall see. They've been globetrotting. They've been in Abu Dhabi, so maybe there's a little bit of rust there that we can look forward to. But away from the court, they're drumming up hype for this new season, and practice in the park kicked off, which I don't know if you're the same, but I am incredibly jealous of everyone that gets to just vibe out at practice at the park.
Yeah.
just in like the dopest surroundings you've ever seen with the New York City skyline. And yeah, 8,000 people showed up, which is a record attendance for practice in the park. I know they've done it a few years now. And 8,000 people booed Steve Nash. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Obviously, super vibey, very positive thing. Just there to touch base with the fans. We did a good portion on Steve Nash last week, so I don't want to go over old ground. But do you think that fans are right to sort of boo Steve Nash when he comes out, or do you think it's one of those exercises where you got to back your team and you got to be positive?
Yeah, I don't know. I think for something like that, it's obviously like a family event, but just with the way it kind of works, obviously, if you go to an NBA game, say you go see the Nets, it's very difficult to show where your booing is directed to, and obviously, you can't. It's not like they can't tell if you're booing Steve Nash directly. Whereas at practice in the park, I'm sure they do something like they go, and your head coach Steve Nash, and he comes out. So it's a good time to show. It didn't surprise me at all, to be honest with you. I mean. You just need to go on Twitter to know that you'd probably think about 90% of Nets fans aren't happy with Steve Nash as head coach this season. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's. I think the only Nets fan Pod just said it wasn't everyone, but there was definitely a lot of boos for Nash, and I think probably some people were there with their families, and you're just there to have a good time.
Trying to be nice guys.
Exactly. I mean, some people were obviously just there to get their point across. They were only booing, to get their point across. And that obviously wasn't the only reason they were there. But I don't know. In terms of Nash, it just seems that he is a little bit bulletproof compared to kind of other coaches around the league. I seem to get that vibe that Nash, Sai and Marks aren't really interested in getting rid of him at the moment. And I guess on the flip side, it does show that kind of they are looking to build kind of like a continuity of kind of within the team, and not just kind of chuck out a coach every season, which a lot of teams obviously do. But it's going to get really difficult for them if he doesn't kind of get off to a good start this year. I mean, the fans will kind of continue to get on the team's back, and Nash is probably the main target of that, because at the end of the day, if you've got Kevin Durant, if you've got Ben Simmons, if you've got Kyrie Irving, and somehow you're not able to coach this team to be at least kind of, say, a second or third seed in the Eastern Conference, and there is a bit of a problem there. It's obviously not an easy job, but yeah, it doesn't seem like it's the hardest job in the league, if you know what I'm saying. It seems like it should be a job where you should be able to come in there and be a mediocre coach and be at least a bit successful.
Of the 30 teams in the NBA, it's not the hardest job.
Yeah, it's not a bad job, especially for your first head coaching role. And he's now in his third season, and he really needs to kind of get his act together. But yeah, as I say, you just need to go on Nets Twitter to see how the majority of Nets fans feel about Steve Nash at the moment. But it's not going to change. Not in the near future anyway, especially after the whole KD ultimatum essentially got shunned by the team, by the owners and Sean Marks. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would have booed there personally. I'm not really a booer, but I can see where they're coming from.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I think it's probably gone too far with Nets fans now. I don't think so. Say, for example, the Nets went 72-10 again. Well, not again, but like that happened in NBA history. Made it all the way to the finals. There would still be people that would be like, "Well, good." Wouldn't get Nash off the hook with Nets fans. I think it's just like, well, you should be that good. Look at the roster you've got. So I think the best that Steve Nash can hope for is that they're so successful on the court, they just stop actively disliking him. Yeah. They can sort of continue to not like Steve Nash, not back him, not believe that he has any, coaching acumen or whatever, doesn't know what he's doing. But yeah, fingers crossed there's the winning will paper over the cracks in that strained relationship, because
it just disguises it a bit, doesn't it? It disguises the poor coaching, and it seems to be when we're healthy, that's when obviously the least kind of Steve Nash moaning happens. Because we do end up winning just purely on talent alone.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's just like, if you keep the Nets fans happy and distracted enough by winning, they won't get onto the fact that they don't like Steve Nash, because they just won't like Steve Nash ever. I think I'm like you. I think I probably wouldn't have booed him just because I'm a nice fella, but I completely understand why a vocal section of Practice in the Park did boo him. But yeah, we shall see. I know there's a good section of Nets fans that would be happy to see him gone. I was in a group chat with some non-Nets basketball fans, and they were just like, I had no idea it got that bad in Brooklyn with people booing Steve Nash. And he's just like, yeah, it's like, with Steve Nash being the coach of this team, I said, it's like, imagine having a Ferrari, but the person driving the Ferrari doesn't ever take it out of second gear. And they're just absolutely ragging it raw. And, that's playing your stars 37 minutes a game. And, they just don't know what they're doing with this sleek piece of machinery. And yeah, it's, Nets fans have had enough. But, we're a positive pod. So hopefully it's going to be all good. But speaking of Practice in the Park, someone who was there physically, but not really taking part and not giving the crowd anything really to go on, was Joe Harris. We touched on it a little bit. Man's injured, and I'm a little bit worried. Obviously, he was kept out of the Miami game, and Steve Nash said, I hope it's not like a lingering thing. I just think it's just a precaution tonight. He's a little sore, and we just want to make sure he gets the proper recovery so that he can come back to full strength. This is kind of going back, but yeah, did you think that Joe Harris should we be worried, or is this kind of normal?
Getting deja vu just a little bit in terms of the fact that we've heard this exact same thing before.
Oh no, he's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's just a kind of, he's just a bit sore after playing, and then it does kind of go up to a lingering thing, and then suddenly he misses the rest of the season. At the end of the day, he is coming back off an injury, but you just have to think we're so far removed from his surgery now that he shouldn't really be feeling pain if he's been playing all summer. And he's been painless. I know it's obviously different when you go into an actual NBA game, preseason or not. There's probably that extra level of intensity that he's maybe kind of tweaked something ever so slightly, but it's just getting a bit annoying now, because he's obviously, I'm not too fussed the fact that he's earning 18 million a year, but because he's earning 18 million a year, you're wanting some productivity out of him.
Return on investment, yeah.
Exactly, and we've probably not had that since he's had that contract. Obviously, we missed a lot last year, and then he didn't have the best season, obviously, when we got to the Eastern Conference semis. And obviously the best players. He had a pretty good season, still top NBA shooter, 3-point shooter. But I thought he looked rusty in the Sixers game. I don't know if he was maybe feeling something then. But yeah, if he's going to be out for if it's going to be an ongoing thing, obviously they'll probably tell within the next few weeks if it's going to be a longer thing. If it potentially needs further investigation, then it's probably worth looking to see if they can move him on somehow. Obviously, it is a bit of it could become a bad contract eventually, which is a sad thing to see from a guy who really did earn that contract
Yeah,
initially.
for sure.
But he is an expiring deal, and they may have to look at seeing if they can get something with his contract with a couple of sweeteners added on. I don't know who that would be, but that's something that they may consider eventually if they feel he's not going to be around as much as they'd hope this year. I hope I'm wrong, and obviously that's being really pessimistic because they did say he's just out because he was a bit sore. So he may come back and play in this Bucks game and then play the rest of the season and be great, but it doesn't look good because of the fact that we've heard this all before.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's just we've been led down the garden path many a time by this kind of weird, borderline liar media stuff that comes out from our injury reports and stuff. So it's always a bit of a pain in the ass, but fingers crossed it's nothing, and he'll be back and it's all good. But talking of roster moves, this is the final point we've got on the docket for tonight. But I said in the intro, it took us until the second episode back of the new season. We haven't even had regular season basketball, but trade rumors are abound again this week. And two particular people in particular, with a mysterious Eastern Conference executive believing the Nets might not be done. And we had a couple of people as potential trade targets. Did you want to run through them?
Yeah, so it was, an Eastern Conference exec is saying that, the net's not done and they're looking at potentially, they could be interested, they're not looking at, but usually when these guys say they could potentially be interested in, there's been some form of phone call. Mo Bamba for the Magic and Kyle Kuzma of the Wizards, obviously. Two interesting names. They're saying that obviously these two teams are obviously rebuilding, the Wizards and the Magic, and they could be interested in some of the younger Nets. The Magic have obviously given up on the Mo Bamba experience. They gave him a contract, but I think that was purely to get some return on their initial investment.
A signing trade eventually.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to go down the old Wendell Carter Jr. route, and they're probably right to do so. But yeah, they could be interested in some of the Nets young guys. The article said Cam Thomas and Daron Sharp were mentioned. Two interesting names, and probably would both help. Any names? Which one of those do you reckon would be more likely to be a decent pickup for the Nets?
I think give me Mo Bamba over Kyle Kuzma. I think Kyle Kuzma as a talent is probably the better basketball player, but just as a fit on this team, Mo Bamba is 24 and a 7 foot out and out center who shot 38% from free last year. So it's just everything that Nets fans have been crying out for, really. It would be it would be annoying if we had to give up Daron Sharp to get him, because we're so threadbare at center. That would kind of negate getting another one in if we're losing Sharp as well, and especially because he has looked pretty good in preseason. But yeah, I think because of Bamba's contract, they can't trade him till January anyway. So I think that does fit in quite nicely with what the Nets were saying in preseason. It might have even been media day or before media day. Excuse me. And they were saying that, they knew they were a bit light at center, but they're going to give it till Christmas or whatever, see what we're up against, and then make a decision, see if there's anyone they can get in. So that would fit perfectly in with getting Mo Bamba in. Kyle Kuzma, I think, is fine, but I think there's just two. What's he, a 4?
Yeah, I'd say 3 or 4. Yeah, big guy, but yeah.
So I think we've got you can always have more wings that have big more. It's a wings league, as we know. So it's always nice to have bigger bodies that are incredibly talented, as Kyle Kuzma is. But I just think for this Nets team, I think that's kind of what we've been crying out for a little while. So if we are to make any moves, I'd rather hit Bamba. But is there any sort of plus points that you'd have Kuzma over Bamba at all?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Obviously, when the article came out, a lot of Nets fans were going back to that Spencer Dinwiddie trade, the sign and trade, where apparently we could have got Kuzma, Caldwell-Pope in that move, but Joe Tsai was being too cheap, as some people were saying. I don't know if there's much truth to that. It seems too good to be true that we could pick up kind of talented guys like that. But that's what was reported at the time. Yeah, I mean, Kuzma's a good player. I mean, he's obviously he's been really good since he's played for the Wizards. But yeah, I think I'm the same as you. It just seems like suddenly, if we say we did give up, I think it was the Wizards that were mentioned as potentially interested in Sharp. Suddenly we're kind of just guards and wings and not enough centers, and we're in the situation we've been in kind of last few years where we don't have enough big bodies. So yeah, I'm certainly in the same boat as you. I like the idea of Mo Bamba in terms of a guy who can rim protect really well. He can stretch the floor. Obviously he's got good percentages. He doesn't do it too often, but as long as you've kind of got a guy that can shoot plus 30%, then at least they're getting guarded and they're not just kind of getting tons of space at the tons of space kind of being avoided. I still personally think that if the Nets were to make a move like that, they'd probably look at Miles Turner if he's still available then. He's the new Aaron Gordon in terms of every Nets fan kind of mentions him as a potential target. But I do think just because of the win now mentality of the Nets, they'd probably go for a trusted guy like Miles Turner, just who's got a wee bit more experience than Bamba. But if some of the trade rumors that were getting chucked about was Bamba for, I think it was Cam Thomas, Patty Mills, and a first or something like that. And if you get Mo Bamba for something like that, you probably end up doing it. Regardless how much you'll love kind of Cam Thomas. If we get to a situation in January where we really need a guy like that, the Nets will pull the trigger on a move like that, no problem at all. But who knows? As you say, it's not until January, so it's a long time to go yet. And it feels like something that would be a trade deadline move if anything was going to happen.
For sure. They always do keep us waiting and stuff like that, which is incredibly annoying, but hey, we're used to it now. And that's going to do us for tonight. Thanks for everyone that came in on YouTube, hopping in the chat. Always nice to see you guys coming in real time. And thank you, whoever is listening on the pod as well. Join us again next week. Looking forward to it. And we'll see you guys later. Peace out.